Gentle. Lisa, hello. Gary. Elizabeth. Happy Thanksgiving. Gentle. Rita, how you doing? Kathleen? I had a nice quiet Thanksgiving. Got my co-star today. Yeah. Mike, how you doing? Give it a couple seconds here, guys. We'll get started. Okay. We got somebody else coming in, I think. All right. Cheryl, how you doing? All right. Let's get started. Swampwatch. 11/29/19. I'm gonna start with China. David, how you doing? We don't need China. China needs us. You know, um, President Trump is 100% in control of the situation. Um, China is only hurting themselves by letting this drag on because it's only going to get worse for them. I don't know if you guys saw, but there was a meme with President Trump's head on Rocky Balboa's body, and now that's the big hit for the protesters in Hong Kong. Uh, I said over the last couple of days that China needs to be really careful here. Because if they're not careful, this whole thing's going to blow up in their face. They're not only not going to get the trade deal they want, they might be out of power. I mean, there was, with all of the, uh, the rioting and the oppressive, tyrannical presence of the government, the people are still, I think there was 1.7 million are basically defying the orders to break it up. That's big in China. Uh, People don't challenge authority there. So if what's going on there is huge. And again, if they're not careful, and then they let this civil unrest boil over into the economic unrest, it could really spiral out of control really quickly for China. So again, they're talking about, oh, the trade deal, we can't get a trade deal. We don't need a trade deal with China. Look what's happened already with Apple. Apple's bringing a factory back to the United States. If China isn't working with our government can make it really difficult on the companies that want to hang with China. You got this whole Huawei, this telecommunications company that's basically the spy agency, or that's heavily infiltrated by the spy agencies of China. And they use this technology to steal competitors' secrets. I've been doing it for years. They've been getting away with it for years. And now not only is that over, but everything else is over with the trade inequities. So everything that's happening there is good. We don't need a deal. China needs a deal. If anything, I think President Trump is just setting the stage for what's going to come when he has to reset the economy, which isn't going to be too far down the road. Mike is saying he saw a video where they were killing protesters. I think there's been several killed in Hong Kong, but it's not stopping them. The people are, like I said, it's grown to like 1.7 million. Crazy for China. It's a very tough situation that China's in right now. They really need to be careful how they handle this, or it could be the end for them sooner than I thought. I wanted to explain, before I get too deep into this, the repo. Everybody's talking about the Federal Reserve and the repo program blowing up. This happened in '08 in the crash. It's worse right now than it was in '08. But so what happens is banks have to have a certain amount of cash on hand to operate by regulation, by law. So what they'll do is, what they have always done is, every day the banks that are a little bit short would borrow from other banks, putting up collateral, and they were 24-hour loans. So the next day, when everything balanced, they'd pay the lending bank back, and they were getting about 2% for those deals. 2% for 24 hours, not bad in this banking environment. When like in Europe, they're zero or negative interest. They're actually paying people to borrow money in Europe. How long that's going to last? Anyway. What happens when the money gets tight, and what happened in '08, the same thing, banks don't want to lend to each other because they know that the collateral that the banks are putting up is garbage. It's worthless. They're all loaded with basically garbage assets, bonds that are, they're never going to be able to dump them. So they don't want to take the collateral. They don't want to make the loans. It got to the point where they were up to, instead of 2%, 10% on an overnight loan. So the Fed had to step in. And so what they do is the repo repurchase agreement. Basically what they do is it's they're actually buying instead of a loan. They're buying the bond or whatever the asset is, and then the borrower is buying it back the next day. They had to do this because the banks won't lend to each other anymore. It's a sure sign that we're going downhill fast. And the problem is that this thing is escalating. I think it's over 300 billion now, and it's growing. The whole bailout was 700 billion in '08, and they've already, I think it's close to 400, 370 or something, I think was the last number I saw. More than half of what they used in '08, and no Congress approval. This system's about ready to go, guys. Because, some people, well, why don't they just keep printing money? Well, that's probably what's going to happen now. And what that leads to, in every instance in history, is hyperinflation. Weimar Germany, just happened in Venezuela, coming here if they keep going down this road. Either way, the economy can't survive, guys. It's either going to be hyperinflation, where it takes you, $1 million to buy a loaf of bread, or it just goes belly up from Deutsche Bank collapsing, or Chase, or Wells Fargo, or any of the central banks go down. The whole thing goes down. So we're almost there, guys. Litecoin and physical silver. Take advantage. Yeah, China. Here's the other thing. If China really, they've been blustering now. Basically threatening. First, they were threatening President Trump with, they were gonna, take measures if he signed the bill backing the protesters. Well, he signed it. What are they going to do? Now, the thing they could do, if they wanted to blow this thing up, and I think it would be the worst thing they could do, because it's better for them to be working with President Trump than against him, because he's not going anywhere, and President Trump can do a lot more damage to them than they can do to him. They believe, I think, that they still have we've talked, remember, about the deep state collapsing the economy as a way to attack President Trump. Well, China could do the same thing. China is every bit as capable of taking down the worldwide economy as the deep state is. Can do it just as easily. Now, of course, it takes them down too, but if they're going down anyway, here's the bottom line is, if one goes down, we all go down. And then that goes not just to countries, but even as far as banks, like Deutsche Bank, could bring the whole thing down. Remember, they think about $1 quadrillion in derivatives. It's mind-boggling. Deutsche Bank alone, just think about this for a second. Our national debt that they admit to, it's way more than this, but they admit to, I think it's up to 23 trillion right now. That's the debt from forever, what we've got on the books. That's what it's built to over time. Deutsche Bank has between 40 and 50 trillion in derivatives alone. One bank. You're talking about the United States, in the history of the country, has 21, 23 trillion, whatever it is, in debt. And Deutsche Bank basically has 40 to 50 trillion in these derivative bets. They're basically side bets. Um, and the problem is, if they go down, that 40 to 50 trillion that goes down with them, and then that takes, because that money, it's a bet, so there's a counterparty to that. They've got to pay off. Well, they go out of business, they can't pay off. It drags, it's just like a domino effect. It takes everybody down. So, in a nutshell, basically what we're seeing is just the unraveling of the worldwide banking system. And they got to the point where, I've been saying this. They kicked the can as far down the road as they could. So it's not going any further. And this means that any day, guys. Now, could they drag it out for another month, 6 weeks? I mean, who knows? But it could go tomorrow. So don't wait. Especially, don't push up. If you've got the resources to do the things you need to do, like we talked about the prep items, extra food, water, medical supplies, your ammo, your physical silver, your Litecoin, do it today. Do it tonight. Don't wait. Don't procrastinate. You're going to wake up one morning and it's going to be too late. So China image and perception is very important to China. China always wants to make it seem like they are 100% in control. Everything's good. No worries here. Well, for 20 years, they haven't had a state bank go down. And they just wouldn't let them go down, right? They prop them up, buy them out, whatever they had to do to keep the appearance that everything's good with the economy. Well, just this year, they've had 5 banks go down. Just in this year. They hadn't had one for 12 or 20 years. It's one thing after another. And they say December is going to be even worse. I don't know how China makes it through December. And then they've got a Fortune 500 commodity company ready to go down. Tiwu Group. It just gets worse. Looks like Black Friday is a bomb. Now the media is trying to play it off on, oh well, everybody's buying online. That's not what's happening. People are strapped. People are buried in debt. We talked about this last night. 48%, I think. 48% of Americans still owe from last Christmas. 48%, almost half the people in the United States are still paying the bills from last Christmas. That's how bad, that's how buried we are, guys. And so it's not that the online shopping is taking away from the retail outlets. It's that nobody's shopping. I haven't been out, but the reports I'm getting are it's like ghost towns out there. We'll see. It makes sense. This can't go on forever. Judy, here's the problem, Judy. We have world record debt. The United States debt alone, when you figure in unfunded liabilities, is about 250 trillion. We're never paying that money back. President Trump knows we're not paying that money back. That's why he's running up the deficit. It's like running up a credit card when you're going to file bankruptcy. That's exactly what's going to happen in the United States. We're very close to filing bankruptcy. If you're new, you need to go to my page or the Watchman page, start watching the videos, and I just posted 3 articles, I think, that you should look at. And anything on paper is going to be worthless when this happens. Your bank account, your pension fund, your house values they're all going down 80+%. Physical silver and Litecoin is insurance against everything you're going to lose. Pension funds are dead. The banks are done. Stocks, bonds, all done. All paper assets will go to zero when this happens. You need to protect yourself. Don't listen to the mainstream media. Although they are now, they're now what's happening was the same thing that happened in '08. Once we were already into it, then we were into it, but they didn't announce it. Just like now, we're deep into this thing. And up until just recently, it's been rosy. But now when the banks and the central banks, what do I got here? Where is that one? Central banks are warning that the markets are out of control. No one can control these markets. It's too far gone. There's nothing you can do. And again, you do nothing, everything collapses. You keep printing money, we have hyperinflation, everything collapses. Doesn't make any difference what we do at this point. This worldwide economy is coming down for the first time ever. There's going to be no one in the world that's not affected by this. Those that are prepared are going to thrive through this. Those that aren't are going to struggle. Yeah. And what are they saying? What are the central banks are saying is the reason? Low interest rates. What they've been pushing for 10 years, what's destroyed the pension funds and retirement accounts, the insurance industry, have been totally decimated by low interest. They need 8% just to break even. Pension funds need 8% to survive. You can't do it on 1 or 2% interest. It doesn't work. And we got 10 years of that. Totally destroyed the economy. I thought I had... Oh, you got all these false flag attacks going on. This is the deep state and the globalist, trying to distract. You had London Bridge stabbings. You had stabbings, I think, at The Hague. And then you had a hostage situation in Rio de Janeiro going on, too. It's typical of what we've been saying. That's how they're going to fight back. In the United States, we're probably going to see a couple of more false flag shootings. Let's see. Okay, let's see what we got for questions. My helper isn't helping much. Rita's husband said President Trump is done for. this is just a good example of how frustrating this can be for, for watchmen. You would think that our spouses and relatives would, some of what we're trying to get across would, that they would just by osmosis gain some of this knowledge. But it seems like sometimes they almost go the other way. They push back even harder because we're so close. But listen, President Trump, that's ignorance. Plain and simple. Listen, to impeach a president, it's not because you don't like him. You can't impeach the president because you don't like him. You've got to have a crime. There is zero crime committed anywhere at any time by President Trump. Anybody who has watched this circus the last 3 years and how the media and the globalist, the deep state, and the liberals have attacked him nonstop for over 3 years, promising time after time after time that they've got evidence, and not a shred to this date. They flat lie through their teeth every single day, verifiable, and people still are like the sheep following the herd. Unbelievable how ignorant these people are. And the problem is, all it takes is an hour. I mean, I could prove to almost anybody in an hour, if they have an open mind and are going to listen, the whole deal. I could lay the whole thing out in an hour. Overwhelming evidence with the economy, with 9/11. I mean, just look at what's going on with the royal family. The Queen just announced she's stepping down. Prince Andrew gets thrown out. My God, the world is burning, and people are walking around like, oh yeah, everything's fine. No big deal. It's madness. And it's easier for people to stick their heads in the sand and say everything's fine than to do what they think is hard and face this thing and start digging, using their critical thinking skills, if they have any, to figure this out. There's just too much going on. You can't say nothing's happening. Look what's going on around the world. My God. Read something besides the Washington Post and watch something besides CNN. I mean, get away from the mainstream media. And there is nothing of value on the mainstream media. You can make a half-assed argument for Fox, but half of them are on the globalist team, and the other half can't say what they want to say, or they're going to get fired. So you're not even getting a straight scoop from Fox. If you want to know the truth about what's going on in the world, you better get on the internet. You got the greatest learning tool man has ever created with the internet and YouTube. The journalists of the future are on YouTube today. That's where we're headed, because when the general population can't deny it anymore, And that is coming when the pedophilia is going to be exposed. It's going to be on the news 24/7, because when this goes down, at some point in the very near future, probably before the end of the year, President Trump's going to have to declare martial law. He's going to seize all of the mainstream media. And then the truth will come out. And it will be on 24/7 worldwide. You won't be able to deny it. You won't be able to hide from it. You will get your red pills force-fed. You're not going to be able to take your time and learn. You're going to be inundated. It's going to be like a tsunami hitting you. It's all going to come out. The economy and why it happened. The deep state and the globalist. The satanic pedophiles. The royal family, the Vatican, our government, the CIA, the FBI. All of this is coming out. I can't stress enough what's going on in the next get out of the way, in the next couple of years. The world is changed forever. If you left today and came back in 5 years, you wouldn't recognize the world when you came back. The evil is being eradicated. I was just thinking about this today. And I'm talking about I'm talking about everywhere. This is worldwide. It's going to affect politics, government, the judicial system, entertainment, the media, news. There's not going to be an area that isn't changed drastically, because probably half the people in government are involved. This has been going on now since basically the end of the Second World War. When the OSS became the CIA, that's basically was the start of the deep state. And they've been working against us ever since. So they have tentacles that go through everything. And these people who've been compromised, who adhere to the globalist agenda, Agenda 2030, Agenda 21, they got to go. And they go into state government, county government, city government. All got to go. And they will go. And it's probably going to take a couple of years to weed them all out. But it changes the world forever as this is going on. And you're already starting to see them turn on each other like crazy. They're saying Epstein's girlfriend singing like a bird. They're saying McCabe and Comey are singing like birds. It's like anybody who... they're basically all doing whatever they can to cut themselves a little bit better deal. They're not going to get much. Anyway. Okay, where are we at? What are you doing here? Oh, man. I'm having old camera trouble here, guys. There we go. Oh, yeah, the UN's done. NATO's done. The UN's done. Guys, you have to Do you think that that's by accident? Do you think what's happening with the UN is an accident? It's a coincidence? It's not. Do you think what's going on in China is a coincidence with the trade deal and all that, and everybody, up in arms because, we're not going to get a trade deal with China? You think that's a coincidence? President Trump is 10 moves ahead of these clowns. They have no clue what they're dealing with. They're dead in the water and they don't even realize it yet. The Federal Reserve is done. The CIA's done. IRS is done. Yeah, with everything that President Trump is going to fix, just on what we save, we will basically have, I don't think we're going to have any more income tax. And probably we could all have health care. They have been bleeding us dry. Trillions of dollars have been stolen from our country through governments and the banks working together. And it's all coming out. President Trump is, no question, if I could pick anybody in history, I'd pick President Trump, knowing what I know today. But don't think that he's done this on his own. He would be a dead man today if it wasn't for God guiding and protecting him. They've already made 11 or 12 assassination attempts. The deep state knows they have to get President Trump out at any cost or they're done. And that's what's going to come out. Reports are that with this FISA, at some point, there's an assassination plot at the DOJ. Pence is going down for an assassination plot. And Ryan. And well, listen, guys, they're not, these guys, it's not an investigation. It's a stall tactic. They've got nothing. If you know anything about the law, my degree's in criminal justice. If you know anything about the law, Schiff, just for what he's done on this Ukrainian deal, that's borderline treason. And I think there's a lot more on the backside of this that's going to come out that even gives more credence to a treason charge. But Schiff has got 3 or 4 or 5 treason charges already backed up. Schiff is going to be executed for treason. Pelosi's going to be executed for treason. Feinstein's going to be executed for treason. Ryan, Pence, going to be executed for treason. Lynch, Holder, Comey, Mueller, I think, are all going to be executed for treason. Anyone convicted of treason is going to be executed. Anyone convicted of murdering children is going to be executed. It's not a coincidence that Barr just reinstated the federal death penalty about 6 weeks ago. There's a reason he did that. Because for murder, we didn't have the death penalty. It hadn't been in use for, I think, 10 years or so. Now it is. And the reason is because they've got all of these cases coming up. Remember, Epstein worked for the CIA. Epstein worked for Mossad. Every property that he owned, New York, Florida, and Pedo Island, were all wired. Sound and video. They've got video on everybody that went to those parties. Think about that. The Pope, the Clintons, most of the CNN newscasters, all on video, torturing and murdering children. How do you think that's going to play out? How many supporters, how many people are going to vote for Democrats when this comes out? And it's mostly Democrat driven, globalist, deep state, liberal driven. There are going to be Republicans that go, including Bush 43 is going to be executed for treason also. 9/11. A lot going down, guys. It's been reported, I don't know, 3 or 4 places today I saw it. Stepping down. Let's put it this way. She's saying on her 95th birthday, which I think is about a year away, she's not going to be there in a year. She will be gone way before she wants to be gone. If you haven't seen the Prince Andrew interview that I posted a couple of days ago, everyone needs to watch that video. I mean, if you want to be on top of this, it gives it's classic. I keep saying, I couldn't write a better script. I cannot believe that video ever got on air. It is the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen. And it goes to show you the arrogance of these people. That he thought he was just going to skate through this interview. Oh. I mean, that's after the interview, that's when he got booted because of that interview. It was devastating to the royal family. Yeah, you guys, knowledge is power, especially right now. More important than any time in our history. Listen, we're headed into the greatest transfer of wealth in human history. We're headed into the biggest economic opportunity in the history of mankind. We're headed into man's greatest age on the back of man's greatest accomplishment, which is defeating this evil that has been ruling us for more than a couple of 100 years. This is all going our way. This is all basically over. There's going to be a rough patch here when it all blows up. If you're prepared, you're probably going to get through it fine. Not that you couldn't be in a bad pocket there where things happen, but for the most part, the people that have extra food, extra water, medical supplies, ammo, physical silver, Litecoin, we've talked about the other things, Faraday bags, infiltration devices, got to get prepped up. This could literally go down any day now. If you remember 2008, happened to have the clear blue. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. He had a little bit of rumbling, nowhere near the rumblings going on today. And then one morning we get the announcement, oh, they just bailed out the banks for $700 billion, or there was going to be martial law the next day. Didn't have a clue. No one had a clue. That's how it's going to happen. Where most people might find out, you go to use your ATM card to buy gas one morning on the way to work. It doesn't work. That's how a lot of people may find out this time. But it literally could happen any day. Okay, guys. Where are we at time-wise? Okay, let me check my notes here. Yeah, we have a republic if we can keep it. That's where we're at. And thank God, guys, because when I started this journey in 2014, Obama was the president, and it looked like Hillary was going to be next. And millions were going to die in that scenario. And that's all going to come out about what their plans were. It's going to rock the world. What's coming is going to rock the world. Not to mention all of the suppressed technology and cures like cancer. Say we had a cure for cancer for 50 years. They wouldn't release it. All these energy savings. 0-point energy. Just think about 0-point energy. They say we've got 0-point energy right now. You know why we don't see it on the streets? Because there's no money in it. And like PG&E here in California, who runs it? Rothschilds are on the board. Take a guess. Like most energy companies around the world, run by globalists. Cheryl's asking about martial law. I think martial law it'll be maybe national on the curfew thing, but I think the troops at least are going to be focused on where they think the trouble spots are going to be, which is going to be places like Chicago, Baltimore, New York, San Francisco, L.A. probably. The Marines are 10,000 Marines have been training in Southern California for several weeks now, maybe a month. He's ready. President Trump knows what's coming. I don't know. He may be the one. I mean, I've said, this thing's going to collapse organically. Deutsche Bank collapsing, which brings down the whole system. It could collapse from the deep state wanting it to collapse to hurt President Trump. In other words, using the economy as a weapon. It could collapse from China doing the same thing, using it as a weapon against us and President Trump. Or it could come as a reset, where President Trump understands this is coming, a collapse is coming, and instead of letting it collapse, he just stops, wipes the slates clean, and starts over. A reset is going to happen. The question is it going to happen early on, or are we going to fumble around for a year or two trying to fix a broken system? This system cannot be fixed. It's too intermingled. There's been too much corruption and manipulation. You couldn't unwind this mess if you tried. The only solution is to wipe the slate clean. Nobody owes anybody anything. Whatever you hold in your hands, you own. Your house, if you're making payments, you own it. Your car, if you're making payments on it, you own it. Now, anybody that owes you money, your pension, probably your bank account's gone. If you've got physical silver and Litecoin, you're going to come out 100 times ahead of where we would have gone if we had just kept going down this road. This is a good thing for the average guy. This is the first chance in my lifetime that for a few $100s, you could change your family's life. This is life-changing. And since I'm on the subject, I'm a watchman. God called me to do this. If you watch channels or pages that do this kind of work, talk about the economy, whatever, a lot of them have subscriptions you got to pay. They ask for donations. Listen, I'm not selling anything. I don't charge anything. I don't accept donations. If you want to give me money, I won't take it. All that I ask is that anything you learn here that you benefit from financially, physical silver and Litecoin, you pay some of that forward, because there's going to be a huge need. And also, as we go through this, there's probably going to be a recovery phase, and we're going to have a little bit of a rough spot, and then I think it won't be too long, and President Trump is pretty dialed in, I think. I don't think we're going to have a lot of downtime, but it could be rough. If you've got everything we talked about, you're going to be way ahead on the other side of this thing. And like we said, buy extra food if you can. Buy extra Litecoin and silver if you can. People ask, well, how much money should I keep in the bank? Or how much should I invest? Well, anything that you don't want to lose, you should invest. Because I can tell you, anything that you leave in the bank is probably going to be gone. Look what happened in Greece. Look what happened in Cyprus. They shut the banks down. You can't get your money, or you can only get $100 a day or something like that. And eventually, and they changed the banking laws a couple of years, by the way, thanks to your great politicians in Washington, who let the banks write the law because they knew this day was coming. So it used to be different. Now they changed the law so that they consider our deposits, our accounts, loans to the bank. So that now when they go bankrupt, we're the last ones to get paid. Which means if we're lucky, we get pennies on the dollar. So, as far as what you invest, anything you don't want to lose. We have virtually 100% of our liquid assets in physical silver and Litecoin. We've got $200 in the bank. That's all I want to lose. Okay, guys. Remember, most people, when we start talking about these things, we know. They don't want to hear it. Their first perception is negative. It's not negative. These things have to happen. The swamp has to drain. The economy has to collapse. And the pedophilia has to be exposed and eliminated. And the world is, for the first time in maybe since Babylon, it's the world that God intended us to have. And our country will be the country that our founders intended us to have. That hasn't been true for a long time, guys. So it's all good. So really push the positive side, the unity. And trust me, when the people find out about what's been going on, what they've been doing to the children, 800,000 go missing a year in America alone. Just think about that. 800,000 children go missing a year in the United States. And everybody's going to know about how that's been happening. The world is going to unite behind President Trump when they find out, because then it's going to be really apparent why they've been attacking him. Because they knew, he made it very clear, his number one priority was eliminating human trafficking / child sex trafficking, and pedophilia was his number one objective. I think that's why we're in the situation we're in. Why the millions aren't dying, because we elected President Trump. And that's what God wanted. Because he's not happy about 800,000 kids a year in America going missing. Plus, abortion will be overturned before President Trump leaves office. All of these globalist attacks on our Constitution will be eliminated. The globalist agendas 21 and 2030 will be eradicated, and all the proponents in our government will be removed. But anytime you hear sustainable development, it's code for UN Agenda 21. Run. Anyway, okay, guys. I'm going to wrap it up here for tonight. Remember, be positive out there. This stuff all has to happen. It's all good. Stay positive. And remember, fear not. God and President Trump are 1,000% control. I'll see you tomorrow night at 5. God bless.